When we hear sex, drugs, and alcohol, we picture a celebrity, maybe a rock star, as the protagonist to this week's story, right? When we add murder to that list, we may even think mobster. But never in our wildest dreams would we consider a nun, someone who is supposed to be the epitome of purity and kindness. If you're sensitive to religious topics, skip this one. I've got plenty of other good stories in my channel that I'm sure you'll like. Otherwise, let's dive right in. Are you ready? Then take my hand, hold it tight, and let's walk into the darkness together. Marie Godfrieda Cecilia Bombeck, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, was born in a small Belgian village named Overmare in 1933 into a poor, devout Catholic family. At around the age of 15, Cecilia began to show interest in being a nun and their lifestyle, and so she joined the Apostolic Congregation of Holy Joseph, which is near the municipality of Wetteren, volunteering her time at the local retirement home. At the age of 24, Cecilia became Sister Godfrieda, officially joining the church's staff and the retirement home's geriatric ward. There, she helped care for the elderly with utmost care and kindness. And she scaled the ranks of not only the church's positions, but also the retirement centers, making her both head nurse and mother superior by 1967. And she was well known amongst her peers for her dutifulness, kindness, and devotion. So basically, Sister Godfrieda had all the qualities that every nurse and nun should have, even if some don't, and those around her loved her because of it. Now, a small bit you should know about the geriatric ward is that this is where they kept all of the patients that needed dire care. All of the 38 elderly patients that fit into the ward were either too sick to move on their own or were in extreme amounts of pain, and the average annual death rate of the ward was around 12 patients, which, considering the situation and age, seemed about normal. So, as the years passed, Godfrieda continued her mission to help these poor souls. In 1970, she began to suffer from these terrible headaches that began to affect her more and more. She sought out a doctor who prescribed painkillers, which seemed to work well for her at first and helped her to continue her work without any issues. But as time went on, the staff at the retirement center began to notice her need for the medication had gone beyond just to help with her headaches. Sister Godfrieda was now addicted to them. However, because of how much they valued Godfrieda, and because they knew it would be a serious loss to their staff even in her current condition, they basically ignored the situation, acting as if everything was normal and no one had noticed. When the headaches became excruciatingly unbearable for her, even with the excessive medication that she was taking, Sister Godfrieda went to Ghent to find a doctor who could help her. Ghent is a city that is basically about a 15 to 20 minute drive west of Wetteren. There, she found a neurologist named Jules Gilbert. She explained what was wrong, and after some tests, he discovered and diagnosed Godfrieda with a malignant brain tumor. After discussing her options, they decided that the best course of action would be to perform surgery and remove the mass. In 1974, Sister Godfrieda underwent the surgery. It was a success, supposedly, with Godfrieda making a full recovery. Yet, her headaches never went away. They continued at full force. The doctor, unaware of her addiction and not understanding the cause of her headaches, did what any normal doctor would do. He prescribed her a stronger medication to try and make her more comfortable as they continued searching for the cause of the mysterious headaches. The medication the doctor prescribed was morphine, which, of course, is extremely addictive. As soon as she began to take the medication, Godfrieda became addicted to it as well and began to steal morphine from the retirement center to support her addiction. Now, a note for future reference, and because I'm not sure where, but somewhere down along the line, she began to take cocaine as well. She also began to falsify prescriptions when she couldn't steal the medication from the ward. Aside from this, Godfrieda's surgery had affected her as well, causing her character and behavior to change dramatically, and making her do things that she had never done prior to it, such as drinking and mistreating the patients. She began to have a sexual relationship with a fellow nun named Sister Matthew, as well as another one with a retired missionary priest. The nurses working with her in the ward began to keep secret diaries, writing down all the strange occurrences involving Sister Godfrieda. Eventually, after they felt they had enough proof, they went to the head of the retirement home, explained the situation, and handed him the diaries as said proof. Now, he chose not to believe them, however, and dismissed them, and their claims stating they were just a bunch of foolish you-know-whats, and that they were plotting against Sister Godfrieda. But after seeing the diaries, he began to keep an eye on Godfrieda as well, and after noticing a few incidents, he conceded that what was happening was very strange. He decided to send Godfrieda to a rehab center, hoping that she would get better, and told the others to keep quiet about it and to not cause rumors that would only hurt everyone involved. He also told them that what happened couldn't be reversed anyway. The rehabilitation failed, however, as someone smuggled morphine and cocaine in for her. Cops later suspected that someone in question had been Sister Matthew, who was living with her at the time. We'll get to that bit in a minute though. About 4 months into her rehab treatment, and when things had begun to go back to normal at the retirement center, Sister Godfrieda decided to send her co-workers a Christmas card with the phrase, "See you soon," written on it. When they saw the "see you soon," they understood that eventually Godfrieda would come back and they'd be right back to square one. So they decided to find a trustworthy doctor who they could confide in and who would help them to confirm suspicions that they had involving Godfrieda and the deaths of various patients. They found a young doctor by the name of Jean-Paul Court, who was well known for being discreet. They explained to him about the addictions and all of their suspicions. They managed to convince him, and he agreed to help if they could find proof. He began to search around and found an agent who had been looking into the region's pharmacies and monitoring their sales of prescription drugs. After speaking to the doctor, he confirmed that Godfrieda had been falsifying prescriptions and gave him the proof that he needed. They took the diaries to the police along with the proof. When the cops went through the diaries, they were horrified to see the dozens of entries that claimed that Godfrieda was stealing drugs and torturing patients by doing things like ripping their catheters out. There were 3 separate occasions where the staff had seen Godfrieda pressing hard on patients' chests and then forcing them to drink water, which you should never do because it causes your airways to fill up with water and could easily drown you. There were also claims that there were thefts happening in the retirement center. Jewelry, money, and checks had begun to vanish, and they suspected that Godfrieda had stolen them to use them to pay for her addictions. There were entries of nuns who had witnessed, heard, or had been victims of corporal punishment, as Godfrieda had taken a liking to whipping them. They also suspected that the thefts were how she paid for a lavishly furnished apartment that she began to share with Sister Matthew. But worst of all was that she had been suspected of having been involved in over 30 deaths in the geriatrics ward. These included an 81-year-old man named Leon Mathis, who had complained about indigestion after eating breakfast. Sister Godfrieda had given him an injection to supposedly help him, and by the afternoon he had passed away. A similar case happened with a woman who had been suffering from insomnia. She received an injection from Godfrieda in the afternoon, and by evening she was dead. This, combined with the fraud and the illegal drug use, was more than enough to set the cops in motion. They began to investigate Sister Godfrieda and follow her. They found out about the lavish apartment and knew that she couldn't have been able to pay for it with her salary. They also saw her and Sister Matthew going out in expensive and provocative clothing, their habits forgotten at home, and enjoying expensive cafes and restaurants and drinking the best wine in the place, visiting sex shops and ordering the most expensive cuts of meat and seafood to be delivered to their apartment. They even followed them to an expensive seaside resort in the Belgian coast, where without their habits again, she and Sister Matthew drank, ate, and fondled each other. This proved the rumors of sexual relationships between them to be true, which lended credibility to the claims of the other female staff, who came forward when interviewed by police and claimed that, although they had always turned down her advances, Sister Godfrieda had come onto them various times. They also claimed that they knew that some of the other nuns had agreed to have sex with Sister Godfrieda just to avoid her wrath and not be beaten by her. One of the nuns even claimed that Godfrieda went as far as prostituting herself for money with the patients, stating that she had overheard Sister Godfrieda say to one of them, "If you pay me well, I will make you happy," and she proceeded to lift up her skirts. The nun was so horrified by what she had witnessed that she ran out of the patient's bedroom, feeling fear and shame. Oh, and remember that average annual death rate? It spiked. From 12, it was now 21 deaths in the ward annually. So, on February 10th, 1978, the cops arrested Godfrieda for forgery. They got her to easily confess to 3 of the suspected murders. She stated that she had given all 3 an insulin injection to overdose them and kill them because they had been too difficult at night. But she assured that she had done it sweetly, that none of the 3 had suffered, and that she had sent them to heaven. Police said that one of the victims that she had confessed to killing had property stolen after her death that amounted to around $30,000. Godfrieda was officially charged with 3 counts of murder, and a judge ordered the bodies of the 3 that she confessed to killing, plus 7 other possible victims, to be exhumed. Autopsies showed that some of the bodies did have traces of insulin in them, but they also happened to be diabetics, so they couldn't use the findings as evidence. The police also spoke to a neurologist who explained to them that there have been cases where a person's character has changed dramatically after brain surgery, and that it was possible that this is what happened to Godfrieda. Sister Godfrieda was pronounced unfit to stand trial due to insanity and was institutionalized. The case became a widespread phenomenon with the whole world. Every photographer wanted to get a photo of Godfrieda for their paper. Every journalist tried to catch the new details as soon as they were released. The only place where the news didn't really make many headlines was in Belgium, where most of the newspapers at the time were Catholic and for the most part chose to ignore the story. In 1990, Godfrieda was quietly released from the psychiatric institution and sent to her former convent in Wetterton. From there, she was eventually taken herself to a retirement center where she finished living out her days and being cared for. It is said that towards the end, Godfrieda was diagnosed with dementia. In 2019, Godfrieda quietly passed away. There was no one at her burial besides the priest, the mortician, and the dean. No one else was notified of her death. She was 86 at the time of her passing. That's it for today. Comment below if you think Godfrieda's behavior changed due to her addictions, if it was her surgery, or if you think she had just had it in her all along, and being so close to death maybe made her change her mind about her life path. Also, let me know where you're from if you found me in a bill.
You can help my small channel grow by sharing it with others who love true crime stories just like us. And remember, as always, to like if you liked and subscribe if you want more. See you next time.